All right, Mr. LaFond, we back. At least we back for now. What's up?
Uh,
Giants fan, Mr. LaFond. Don't go to Philly. Anyway, but don't go back to Baltimore with that. Anyway, you're talking about lately. I've been rereading and reading more stuff into one of the periods of history I find fascinating. The period in America during World War I, where essentially they threw away like everything from civil rights to literally like arresting people for like not buying war bonds, or saying that how much they wanted to destroy Germany and kill all the Huns, right? And going through it, and it was almost like a religious sort of tent revival sort of hysteria. And we're talking about now, thinking about. I'm not going to mention something that happened a couple of years ago. What was it? Oh, the COVID thing. Yeah, okay. I just mentioned it. The hysterias that, of course, very womanly, but plenty of men. In fact, men have directed it towards various things. And I'm only going to focus on America just because we're supposed to be so much better in that, and we'll throw away everything over hysteria as seen recently, and there's more hysterias to come, I'm sure. But you wanted to bring up, talking about World War One. You're always going to talk about the goon squad known as the American Legion. And now the Legion halls are pretty much places for old guys to get drunk and rent out for parties and stuff. But back in the day, they used to like go around and like kill motherfuckers in the street. As we were talking about hysterias and stuff like that, you had mentioned the actual origin of the American Legion based in a hysteria.
oh, after the Revolutionary War, um, the United States had European debts to pay off, and there's no standing army. There wasn't supposed to be a standing army. There was either 96 or 98 artillerymen, and that was it. And there were tribes that wanted to be allied with the United States, that wanted to inherit the good positions that they had enjoyed with the British, and it was explicit in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution that a reason for the formation of the United States was to make alliances with tribes as sovereign nations. There were there were schemes to pay back the debt owed to European powers, any one of which could have invaded the United States and caused a lot of trouble. And if two of them did it, the United States would have just been partitioned. For instance, if France and Great Britain and the Netherlands and some German principality all decided they were going to dice up the United States, they could have easily done it.
Yeah.
The Brits had the weakest army, and they made a pretty long fight of the revolution. And the revolution was only won because of French help. So a single French corps like Leclerc had could have taken down the U.S. early on. That was well known by the United States. So what were they going to do? The government under Washington decided to betray these Indians and to pick fights with them. And an army of conscripts was scraped together out of whorehouses and taverns and stuff, and they were forced into combat, and they were abandoned by their officers in a fight. And it was about 900 of them, and they were fighting about 900 Indians from various different nations.
Oh God.
Their officers abandoned them during the fight. The artillerymen fought to the last, but the officers left their men behind and heroically cut their way through the enemy lines. So almost all the men died. Even most of the women in the army were killed, but almost all the officers lived.
Oh, well, you know what? Thank God.
Mad Anthony Wayne was then recruited to redeem this, and was told to raise an American Legion. The American Legion would just be a temporary measure, and it wouldn't be called an army. It would be disbanded after the Indian menace was defeated. Now, first of all, there were complaints about the start of these hostilities because there was undeveloped land to the east of the Appalachians all over the place that was there for the taking, but the rich guys wanted to aggregate it. They didn't want it parceled out. So they wanted the poor guys to have to go fight the Indians for the Indian land and to have to buy it on credit, okay, so that money could be used to pay off the European debt.
Right.
So there were letters to the editors in Massachusetts, why are we fighting for Indian land when we don't have the men to develop the land that we have? So once Sinclair's army gets defeated, and it happened when Message Browning was a young fellow, like 13, hunting in western Maryland and western Pennsylvania. There was this fantastic scare campaign in the eastern cities that these 900 warriors, most of who had already gone back to their Great Lakes homes.
Okay.
Because they won the battle, they got the loot, that these 900 warriors were going to sweep all 500,000 American rifle owners into the sea. 500,000 men who owned rifles felt like they had no chance whatsoever of surviving an attack by these 900 warriors who could hardly ever agree on anything unless they were being invaded.
Right.
Okay, so the newspapers were marshaled for this hysteria. Sinclair's defeat was used to allow Washington to detail professional soldier Anthony Wayne to form an American Legion. He conscripted soldiers. He had them beaten. He had them training under threat of execution.
Yes.
He had them led to, and now Turtle, who led the battle that defeated Sinclair's army, he would not lead this battle. He said, because Anthony Wayne is a snake that never sleeps.
Oh.
We cannot defeat him.
Oh, wow.
Okay, he did fight in the Battle of Fallen Timbers. It was won by Blue Jacket. It was his co-commander in the Battle of the Pumpkin Field that wiped out Sinclair's army. But that army was defeated. Turtle retires to a house that his son-in-law, a white American, buys for him, dies behind a white picket fence. He ends up later being summoned to Washington by George Washington and given a sword for his service to the country. Now, his service to the country was wiping out more American soldiers percentage-wise
right.
in any battle that was ever lost by an American force.
Okay.
This was the biggest American military defeat in American history,
right.
by scale. It was the entire U.S. military was wiped out in an afternoon, and by accomplishing this, Turtle was recognized as a national hero by George Washington because he facilitated the formation of the American Legion. Now, Anthony Wayne writes a letter back to the Secretary of War and to George Washington after the Battle of Fallen Timbers, which was won by American soldiers and officers, and he says, every officer, from the lowest ensign all the way up to the highest general, distinguished himself for the glory of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Okay? No soldier was given credit.
By what?
10 years, just only a couple years later, just like a year and a half later, the Whiskey Rebellion was put down.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, with the help of Shawnee warriors who were put in charge of scalping American deserters in the army, the guys that were just defeated. So that was the greatest American military hero was actually Turtle, who slaughtered the greatest, almost the entire U.S. military in a day, as recognized by George Washington, founding grogfather of the United States.
Grogfather.
And the American Legion was not disbanded. It was turned into the permanent standing American Army against all the provinces that had been made when it was instituted as a temporary measure against these unbeatable 913 warriors who were going to sweep 500,000 rifle-owning Americans into the state. Okay, so that's your original American hysteria.
Oh, it's amazing. It's almost like they're just like using like most of Americans for something and then discarding them literally within their own lifetime and rewarding their killer. Hey, I thought this. Did you know the founding fathers were essentially white nationalists. Did you know that? It says in the charter, yeah, free white men of good standing are the only people that should become American citizens. Amazing. This was a country made for the white man. Amazing. Oh, just sacrifice the majority of your worthless scum under.
Well, the soldiers weren't men in good standing.
No, good standing. They're scum.
Because they weren't officers.
Better it's better they give their worthless lives for some cause other than their own, useless eaters. Even though you work them to death, they don't pay. Give them enough money for a little grog to kill the pain.
You'll never put a dent in the delusion.
I know.
It's impenetrable.
I know. The grog father. I like that. My man Washington, son. I said, you don't play.
He was a stud.
He was a stud, yeah.
He beat his own white slaves.
Yeah, you know what? You gotta give him that. He's like, yo, overseer.
And some of them hung and shot too.
He's like, oh, I don't need no overseer. I'm gonna come over to this Rhinelander. You didn't pick that weed quick enough, Kraut. Bop, bop, bop. Oh, God. All right.